She forgot her purse in the car and never imagined the driver would find the positive pregnancy test. The problem was, he was her boyfriend's brother, and he knew his brother was sterile. Some secrets are so heavy they can destroy not just one life, but 3. And Anna's began with 2 pink lines and a purse forgotten on the back seat of an Uber. In that moment, when she closed the car door and hurried across the sidewalk toward the most important meeting of the quarter, she didn't know she was leaving behind more than documents and credit cards. She was leaving behind a truth that, once discovered, would trigger a sequence of events none of them could control. Because the truth, when it falls into the wrong hands, or perhaps the right hands, depending on how you look at it, has the power to transform into a weapon, into justice, into revenge, and sometimes into all of those things at once. Anna woke up that Thursday with the feeling that the day was already running late before it even began. The alarm didn't go off, she didn't hear it, either way. The morning light came through the bedroom window with that harsh September clarity, cutting shadows on the white walls. She got up too quickly and felt the dizziness, that vertigo that had been happening in recent days, and she preferred not to think too much about what it meant, but she knew. Deep down, she always knew. The shower was quick, mechanical, water too hot, steam fogging up the mirror. When she got out, she was already 15 minutes later than planned. The meeting was at 9. She couldn't miss this meeting. Not today. She put on the navy blue blazer she always wore when she needed to appear more confident than she really was, grabbed the brown leather purse from the hook on the door, and went down the stairs 2 steps at a time. The driver was already waiting on the corner grey Honda Civic, license plate ending in 3. She checked the app before opening the back door. "Good morning," said the driver, a man around 40 years old, short hair, discreet frame glasses. "Good morning," Anna replied without really looking at him, already checking her phone, reviewing accumulated emails. The car smelled of lavender air freshener, that synthetic type trying to mask the smell of old upholstery. She sank into the seat, the purse on her lap, her fingers sliding across the phone screen. Messages from Bruno. 3 messages. She read quickly. "Good morning, love. Remember, I'm leaving early today. Love you." She typed a good morning back and put the phone in her purse. Traffic was worse than normal. Congested avenue, endless traffic lights, distant honking. Anna looked out the window without really seeing anything. Store facades, people crossing the street, a man selling water on the corner. Her mind was somewhere else. It was on the result of that test she had taken 2 days ago, alone, in the apartment bathroom, while Bruno was at work. 2 pink lines, clear, impossible to ignore. She hadn't told anyone yet, not even Bruno, especially not Bruno. Because how do you tell someone you love that you're re-carrying a secret capable of destroying everything you've built together? How do you admit that the truth, however necessary it may be, will hurt more than any lie could? And more importantly, at what point does protecting someone you love transform into cowardice disguised as care? The car stopped in front of the commercial building. Anna looked at the clock on the dashboard. 8:57. 3 minutes. There was time. "Thank you," she said, already opening the door, her body in motion before her brain could even process. She crossed the sidewalk in quick steps, pushed through the glass revolving door, entered the building's refrigerated lobby. The security guard waved. She waved back. Elevator 12th floor. She pressed the button and waited, her heart racing, her breathing a little shorter than it should be. It was only when the elevator door closed that she realized the purse. She didn't have her purse. Her stomach dropped. Her hands automatically went to her shoulders, to her sides, as if the purse could have materialized somewhere she wasn't seeing. Nothing. She had left it in the car. On the back seat of the grey Civic, Anna pressed the ground floor button hard, but the elevator was already going up. 12th floor. The door opened. She got out, looked around, saw the receptionist smiling. "Good morning, Anna. The meeting is about to start." Anna took a deep breath. "I forgot my purse in the car. I need to call the driver. Do you want to use the phone here?" "No, that's okay. I'll use my cell phone." But the cell phone was in the purse. Obviously, it was in the purse. Anna felt a wave of heat rise up her neck. The receptionist looked at her with that polite expression of someone who doesn't know whether to help or just wait. "Can I borrow your phone?" Anna asked, her voice coming out thinner than she intended. Of course. The receptionist unlocked the device and handed it over. Anna opened the transportation app, logged in. Thank God she remembered the password, and tried to locate the trip. The ride had already been completed. There was no direct option to contact the driver. Just a button, report, forgotten item. She clicked. A form appeared. Anna typed quickly. Brown leather purse, left it on the back seat. Please contact urgently. Sent. Done. Anna returned the phone. Thank you. The meeting ... I know. I'm going in. Anna walked down the hallway trying to organize her thoughts. The purse. The test was inside the purse. Inside a white envelope, along with other papers, bills, receipts. Nothing much, but it was there. If the driver opened the purse looking for identification, he would find it. She entered the meeting room. 6 people already seated around the glass table. The director at the head, looking at her with a neutral expression. Good morning, Anna. You can begin. Anna pulled out the chair and sat. She had no laptop, no notes, nothing but her own memory and the ability to improvise. Good morning, everyone, she began, her voice firmer than she imagined she could manage. Let's talk about third quarter numbers. And she talked. For 40 minutes, she presented data she had memorized the night before, answered questions, made projections. But part of her mind was elsewhere. It was in the back seat of a grey Honda Civic, next to a brown leather purse that held a secret that could change everything. Carlos finished the ride on the app and looked in the rearview mirror. The passenger had already entered the building. He sighed, grabbed the water bottle from the cup holder and took a long sip. Another ride. Another morning of traffic and polite conversations that led nowhere. He was about to accept the next request when he saw the purse. It was there, on the back seat, leaning against the right side, as if it had been carefully positioned and then forgotten. Brown leather, thick strap, a small scratch near the clasp. Carlos turned off the app. He picked up the purse and placed it on the passenger seat. It happened from time to time. Passengers forgot things: cell phones, wallets, umbrellas, once even a laptop. The procedure was simple. Wait for contact through the app, arrange a meeting place, deliver the item. He opened the purse looking for identification. Better to know whose it was before the person panicked. There was a lighter colored leather wallet right in front. He picked it up, opened it. Credit card ID, health insurance card, Ana Clara Mendez. The name hit him like a blast of cold wind. Carlos looked again, read the full name, date of birth, address, then looked at the photo on the ID. The face matched the passenger who had just gotten out of the car. Ana Clara Mendez, Bruno's girlfriend. Carlos closed the wallet slowly, as if the gesture could undo what he had just discovered. He knew that name, knew that face. Bruno had shown photos, talked about her at Sunday lunches, in that somewhat shy way of someone who's in love but afraid to admit it too loudly. He put the wallet back inside the purse, but his hand bumped into something else. A white envelope, folded in half. Carlos hesitated. It wasn't his business, but curiosity was stronger. He pulled out the envelope, unfolded it. Inside were papers, electric bills, pharmacy receipt, a dentist's business card, and at the bottom, somewhat crumpled, a pregnancy test. Carlos picked up the test and turned it in the light. 2 pink lines, clear, positive. He stared at it for a time that seemed much longer than it really was. The noise from the street outside continued, cars passing, people talking on the sidewalk, a distant horn. But inside the car there was only silence and that piece of white plastic with 2 pink lines. Bruno's girlfriend was pregnant. Carlos put the test back in the envelope, placed everything inside the purse, and closed the clasp. His hands were trembling slightly. He leaned his head back on the seat and closed his eyes. Bruno was sterile since he was 23, after unsuccessful treatment for testicular cancer. The doctors had been direct. The chance of him having biological children was practically zero. Carlos remembered the conversation they had at the time, in the living room of their parents' house. Bruno sitting on the couch with hunched shoulders, his voice choked, saying that maybe he would never have a real family. But you can adopt, Carlos had said, trying to help. There are other ways. I know, Bruno had replied, but it's not the same thing. And now there was a positive pregnancy test in his girlfriend's purse. Carlos opened his eyes and looked at the purse on the seat beside him. The logic was simple and brutal. If Bruno couldn't have children, and Ana was pregnant, then the child wasn't Bruno's. He picked up his phone and opened the app. No messages yet. It would take a few minutes until Ana realized where she had her phone and could report the lost item. Carlos had time. Time to think. Time to decide what to do with this information that had just fallen into his lap like a silent bomb. He could simply return the purse, hand everything back, pretend he saw nothing, move on with his life. It was the simplest, the most correct, perhaps, but it was Bruno, his younger brother, the guy who had called him crying when he found out he could never have children. The guy who was now being deceived by the woman he loved. Carlos started the car and pulled out of the spot. But before accelerating, a question stopped him. What exactly did he want to do with this information? Protect Bruno, or control everyone's fate? The line between justice and revenge has always been thinner than we like to admit, and Carlos was about to discover that when you place yourself as arbiter of someone else's truth, you're not just revealing secrets, you're exercising power, a power that can both save and destroy. He drove for 15 minutes to a parking lot near a small park he used to frequent during breaks between rides. He parked under a tree, turned off the engine and sat there, hands on the steering wheel, watching the leaves swaying in the wind outside. The phone vibrated. App notification. Forgotten item reported. Brown leather purse. Carlos read the message, then read it again. He could respond now, arrange a meeting, return the purse, but something inside him resisted. Was it justice? Was it revenge? Or just the arrogance of thinking he had the right to decide how and when the truth should come out? Carlos wasn't sure, and this uncertainty bothered him more than he'd like to admit. If he simply told, Bruno would ask how he knew. And then, I found a pregnancy test in her purse. Bruno would find it invasive, would defend Anna, would say Carlos was meddling where he shouldn't. No, it had to be different. It had to be in a way that Bruno discovered on his own, or that Anna was forced to reveal the truth. Carlos took a deep breath and picked up his phone again. He opened the app and went to Anna's message. He could respond, but not now. He put the phone in the glove compartment and closed it with a sharp click. First, he needed a plan, and he needed to be sure he was doing this for Bruno and not for some dark part of him that felt powerful controlling other people's destinies. But that certainty, he would discover later, would never come, because when we act driven by a mixture of love, anger, and power, we rarely manage to separate one thing from another until it's too late. Anna left the meeting with the feeling that she had just climbed a mountain blindfolded. It had worked. The numbers were right. The answers had been solid. The director had nodded with approval at the end. But the purse was still lost. She borrowed the phone again and checked the app. The driver had viewed the message, but hadn't responded. She waited 5 minutes. 10, nothing. Anna typed another message. Please, I urgently need the purse. It has important documents. I can pick it up wherever is best for you. Sent. Viewed. No response. She returned the phone to the receptionist and went back to her desk, her stomach churning. She tried to concentrate on emails, on spreadsheets she needed to update, on calls she needed to make. But her head always went back to the purse, to the test, to what would happen if Bruno found out before she had the courage to tell him. The corporate phone rang. It was Bruno. Hi, love, she answered, trying to sound normal. Hi, everything okay? How was the meeting? It was good. Went well. That's good. I'm leaving early. Remember, I thought about making that pasta you like. Sound good? Anna closed her eyes. His voice was so calm, so confident that everything was right between them. Sounds good, she said. I'll be home around 7. Perfect. Love you. Love you too. She hung up and stared at the empty computer screen. Carlos parked in front of the building where Bruno lived and turned off the engine. He looked up at the 4th floor windows. The light was on. Bruno was home. He hadn't called to say he was visiting. He just showed up because he needed to see his brother, needed to confirm that all this was real and not some kind of nightmare manufactured by his own head. Carlos grabbed the purse from the back seat. He still hadn't returned it, had made up an excuse on the app about being out of town, and locked the car. He went up the stairs, knocked on the door. Footsteps inside. The door opened. Bruno was in a sweatshirt and shorts, messy hair, a surprised smile on his face. What a surprise. Come in. Carlos entered. The apartment smelled of garlic and tomato. Something was cooking on the stove. I'm making pasta, Bruno said, heading to the kitchen. Want to have dinner here? Anna will be here soon. No thanks. Just stop by to say hi. Bruno turned off the stove and turned to his brother. Everything okay? You seem kind of tense. Carlos forced a smile. I'm fine. Just tired. Lots of rides today. I can imagine. Bruno grabbed 2 beers from the fridge, opened both, and handed one to Carlos. They went to the living room, sat on the couch. So, how are things going? Carlos asked, his voice too casual. Everything's normal. Work is tough, but it's going. A new same silence. Carlos took a sip of beer, his eyes wandering around the room. There were photos on the shelf. Bruno and Anna at the beach. Bruno and Anna at some party. Bruno and Anna hugging, smiling at the camera. lives built on truths and lies, happiness that existed only because some secrets hadn't been revealed yet. And Anna, Carlos asked, as if it were nothing, how is she? Bruno smiled in that way people in love smile when they talk about who they love. She's good, working a lot, but good. You guys are good. Yeah. Why? Carlos shrugged, just asking. Bruno looked at him more carefully now, his eyebrows slightly furrowed. Is there something you want to tell me? No. Carlos took another sip. Just wanted to know how you were. It's been a while since we talked properly. That's true. Bruno relaxed. We should hang out more. Like old times. Yeah, we should. More silence. Carlos knew he should leave, but something kept him there, something he couldn't name. Maybe it was the need to look at his brother and see if there was any sign, any suspicion, any doubt, but there wasn't. Bruno was calm, even happy, and that made everything harder. Because revealing the truth wasn't just about justice, it was also about destroying this happiness, this innocence. It was becoming the agent of pain. And you guys, ... double quotes Carlos started, but stopped. What? Nothing. Forget it. Say it. Carlos, do you guys think about, I don't know, getting married, having kids? Bruno's expression changed. It became more serious, more distant. We talk about it, but you know how it is. I know I can't have children, Carlos, you know that, I know. But there are other options. Adoption, fertilization, ... double quotes. Anna knows about my situation, Bruno interrupted, his voice a little harder. And she says it's all good. That we'll figure it out when the time comes. Carlos nodded slowly. She really said that? She did. Why are you asking this? Just curious. Bruno looked at him for another second, then looked away and drank more beer. The mood had gotten strange, heavy. Carlos stood up. I'm going. Let you have dinner in peace. You sure? There's pasta for everyone, I'm sure. We'll see each other another day. Bruno walked his brother to the door. Thanks for stopping by, he said, and there was something genuine there. Something of brotherly affection that made Carlos feel a pang of guilt. Any time, bro. Carlos went down the stairs and returned to the car. He sat in the driver's seat and stayed there, hands on the steering wheel, looking at the lit window on the 4th floor. Bruno knew nothing, had no idea, and Carlos had just confirmed that Anna hadn't told him either. She knew Bruno was sterile, knew he could never be the father of that child, and yet she was pregnant. This wasn't a mistake, it wasn't a misunderstanding, it was betrayal. But it was also something more complex, wasn't it? It was human imperfection. It was people making bad decisions in moments of weakness. It was the difference between what we promise to be and what we really are when no one is watching. Carlos started the car and drove away. But as he drove, a voice inside him whispered uncomfortable questions. Was he really doing this for Bruno? Or was there a part of him that felt powerful holding this information, controlling when and how the truth would be revealed? He had no answers. But he knew he wasn't going to return the purse tomorrow. Not yet. First, he needed to think carefully. He needed a plan that would force the truth out without him having to be the direct messenger, because some truths needed to come from the people involved themselves, and he would make sure this one did, even if, deep down, he knew he was doing this as much for justice as for some selfish need to control the narrative. On Friday, Carlos finally responded to Anna's message. Sorry for the delay. I'm out of town on business. Back Monday. We can arrange the return then. Anna's response came in less than a minute. Monday is too long. Please, isn't there any way it can be sooner? Carlos waited 5 minutes before responding. Unfortunately not. But Monday morning I'll deliver for sure. He locked the phone. For days, she would have to wait for days, and in the meantime, he had an idea. Anna spent the weekend in a constant state of alert. Friday night, when Bruno mentioned Saturday lunch with Carlos, she felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. It'll be good, Bruno said, excited. It's been a while since the three of us got together like this. Anna forced a smile. Yeah, it'll be nice, but there was nothing nice about it. Carlos would be there. The man who had her purse. The man who potentially already knew everything. Saturday morning, Bruno woke up early and went to the market. Anna stayed in bed longer, staring at the ceiling, trying to gather courage to face the day. Noon came too quickly. The doorbell rang. Bruno went to the door and opened it with a wide smile. Hey bro. Carlos entered, a bottle of wine in hand. He greeted Bruno with a quick hug, then looked at Anna, who was standing near the living room table. Hi, Anna, he said, his voice casual, polite. Hi, Carlos. They looked at each other for a second that seemed to last much longer than it should. Anna tried to decipher his expression, but he was neutral, his face serene, almost friendly. "Thanks for coming," Bruno said, taking the wine bottle. "I'll put this in the fridge. Sit down, make yourself comfortable." Carlos sat on the couch. Anna stood for a few more seconds, then forced herself to sit in the armchair on the other side of the room. The distance between them was just a few meters, but it seemed enormous. "So, Anna," Carlos began, crossing his legs. "How are you?" "I'm good. And you?" "Good too. Working a lot, but it's fine." Silence. Bruno returned from the kitchen with 3 beers. They toasted, the sound of glass hitting glass echoing in the room. "So," Bruno began, sitting next to his brother. "Any news?" "Nothing major," Carlos replied. "Same routine. And you guys?" "Same thing. Work, home, work." Carlos took a sip of beer, his eyes wandering around the room. They stopped for a second on the photos on the shelf, then returned to Bruno. "And plans?" he asked. "Are you guys thinking about, I don't know, next steps?" Anna felt her whole body stiffen. Bruno laughed. "You already asked that the other day. Man, curious about my love life now." "Just asking." Carlos shrugged. "How long have you guys been together again?" 2 years. 2.5 years, Anna replied, her voice coming out firmer than she expected. "Good amount of time," Carlos commented. "Enough to really know a person in 2.5 years." There was something in the way he said that. Something in the tone, in the choice of words. Anna couldn't define what it was, but it was there. A weight, an insinuation. "That's true," Bruno agreed, noticing nothing. "I feel like I know Anna better than I know anyone else." Carlos smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "That's good. Trust is important in a relationship." "Absolutely," Bruno said. Anna drank more beer, trying to calm her heart that was beating too fast. She needed to get out of there, needed air, but she couldn't just get up and leave without seeming strange. "I'll check on the food," she said, standing up. "Want help?" Bruno asked. "No need, I've got it." She went to the kitchen and closed the door behind her. She leaned her hands on the sink and took a deep breath. Outside, she could hear Bruno and Carlos's voices talking, laughing about something. Everything so normal, so casual, but it wasn't normal. Anna knew that. She felt it in every cell of her body. Carlos knew, he had to know, and he was playing with her, like a cat plays with a mouse before killing it. Lunch was served half an hour later. They sat at the table, Bruno at the head, Carlos on one side, Anna on the other. The food was good, tender ribs, fluffy rice, fresh salad, but Anna could barely eat. Each forkful seemed to weigh tons. "It's delicious, Bruno," Carlos said, wiping his mouth with the napkin. "Thanks." Bruno smiled at Anna. "Anna taught me how to make these ribs." "Really?" Carlos looked at her. "So you cook well then?" "More or less," Anna replied. "She's modest," Bruno insisted. "She cooks very well." Carlos nodded slowly, his eyes still fixed on Anna. "I bet there are many things Anna does well that we don't know about." The sentence fell like a stone in the middle of the table. Bruno laughed, not understanding, but Anna understood. She understood perfectly. She put her fork on the plate and wiped her mouth with the napkin, her hands trembling slightly. "Excuse me," she said, standing up. "I'm going to the bathroom." Anna spent the weekend in a constant state of alert. Friday night, when Bruno mentioned Saturday lunch with Carlos, she felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. "It'll be good," Bruno said, excited. "It's been a while since the 3 of us got together like this." Anna forced a smile. "Yeah, it'll be nice," but there was nothing nice about it. Carlos would be there. The man who had her purse. The man who potentially already knew everything. Saturday morning, Bruno woke up early and went to the market. Anna stayed in bed longer, staring at the ceiling, trying to gather courage to face the day. Noon came too quickly. The doorbell rang. Bruno went to the door and opened it with a wide smile. "Hey bro." Carlos entered, a bottle of wine in hand. He greeted Bruno with a quick hug, then looked at Anna, who was standing near the living room table. "Hi Anna," he said, his voice casual, polite. "Hi Carlos." They looked at each other for a second. That seemed to last much longer than it should. Anna tried to decipher his expression, but he was neutral, his face serene, almost friendly. "Thanks for coming," Bruno said, taking the wine bottle. "I'll put this in the fridge. Sit down, make yourself comfortable." Carlos sat on the couch. Anna stood for a few more seconds, then forced herself to sit in the armchair on the other side of the room. The distance between them was just a few meters, but it seemed enormous. "So," Anna, Carlos began, crossing his legs. How are you? I'm good. And you? Good too. Working a lot. But it's fine. Silence. Bruno returned from the kitchen with 3 beers. They toasted, the sound of glass hitting glass echoing in the room. So, Bruno began, sitting next to his brother. Any news? Nothing major, Carlos replied. Same routine. And you guys? Same thing. Work. Home. Work. Carlos took a sip of beer, his eyes wandering around the room. They stopped for a second on the photos on the shelf, then returned to Bruno. And plans? He asked. Are you guys thinking about? I don't know. Next steps. Anna felt her whole body stiffen. Bruno laughed. You already asked that the other day, man. Curious about my love life now. Just asking. Carlos shrugged. How long have you guys been together again? 2 years. 2.5 years, Anna replied, her voice coming out firmer than she expected. Good amount of time, Carlos commented. Enough to really know a person in 2.5 years. There was something in the way he said that. Something in the tone, in the choice of words. Anna couldn't define what it was, but it was there. A weight, an insinuation. That's true, Bruno agreed, noticing nothing. I feel like I know Anna better than I know anyone else. Carlos smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. That's good. Trust is important in a relationship. Absolutely, Bruno said. Anna drank more beer, trying to calm her heart that was beating too fast. She needed to get out of there, needed air, but she couldn't just get up and leave without seeming strange. I'll check on the food, she said, standing up. Want help? Bruno asked. No need, I've got it. She went to the kitchen and closed the door behind her. She leaned her hands on the sink and took a deep breath. Outside, she could hear Bruno and Carlos's voices talking, laughing about something. Everything so normal, so casual, but it wasn't normal. Anna knew that. She felt it in every cell of her body. Carlos knew, he had to know, and he was playing with her, like a cat plays with a mouse before killing it. Lunch was served half an hour later. They sat at the table, Bruno at the head, Carlos on one side, Anna on the other. The food was good, tender ribs, fluffy rice, fresh salad, but Anna could barely eat. Each forkful seemed to weigh tons. It's delicious, Bruno, Carlos said, wiping his mouth with the napkin. Thanks. Bruno smiled at Anna. Anna taught me how to make these ribs. Really? Carlos looked at her. So you cook well then? More or less, Anna replied. She's modest, Bruno insisted. She cooks very well. Carlos nodded slowly, his eyes still fixed on Anna. I bet there are many things Anna does well that we don't know about. The sentence fell like a stone in the middle of the table. Bruno laughed, not understanding, but Anna understood. She understood perfectly. She put her fork on the plate and wiped her mouth with the napkin, her hands trembling slightly. Excuse me, she said, standing up. I'm going to the bathroom. Anna washed her face with cold water, her hands trembling as she turned on the faucet. Drops dripped down her chin, falling into the white sink. She looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red, her skin pale. She looked sick. She looked guilty. When she opened the bathroom door, she almost bumped into Carlos. He was standing in the hallway, hands in his pockets, leaning against the wall as if just waiting his turn. Sorry, Anna said, taking a step to the side. No problem. But he didn't move. He stayed there, looking at her with that neutral expression that revealed nothing and revealed everything at the same time. You okay? He asked. You look kind of pale. I'm fine. You sure? Because you barely ate. Anna felt her throat tighten. Just have an upset stomach. Must be something I ate yesterday. Carlos nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on hers. Yeah, sometimes we eat something and only later realize we shouldn't have eaten it. There were layers to that sentence. Anna knew it, but there was no way to confront it without revealing what she was hiding. I'm going back to the table, she said, trying to pass him. Anna, his voice stopped her. Did you forget something this week? Her heart stopped for a second. What do you mean? Yorpus. Carlos took his hands out of his pockets. You reported a forgotten item on the app, a brown leather purse. Anna felt the ground sway beneath her feet. It was you, she whispered. You were the driver. He didn't respond immediately. He just looked at her with that calm expression, almost curious, like someone studying a reaction. It was, he said finally. Small world, huh? You, ... double quotes. Anna swallowed hard. Did you open the purse? I looked for identification to know whose it was, and the rest. Did you see ... anything else? The silence between them was dense, heavy. From the living room came the sound of the television. Bruno had turned on some news channel. The volume was low, but it filled the empty space. Carlos took a step closer. "You want to know if I saw the pregnancy test?" he asked, his voice low enough that Bruno wouldn't hear. Anna felt tears burning in her eyes, but didn't let them fall. "Please," she whispered. "Please don't tell him." "Why shouldn't I tell him?" "Because ... She stopped. What could she say? That she was planning to tell him another way? That she still hadn't found the courage? None of that would work. "He has a right to know," Carlos said. And there was something genuine there, something of pain. "You know what he went through. You know what it means to him not being able to have children. And now you show up pregnant." "I know," Anna whispered, her voice breaking. "I know what this will do to him. That's why I haven't told him yet. But were you going to tell him? Or were you going to let him believe the child is his? I don't know." The words came out louder than she intended. She lowered her voice again. "I don't know what to do. I never wanted this to happen, but it happened. I know." Carlos looked at her for a few more seconds, and in that look, Anna saw something beyond justified anger. She also saw conflict, doubt, the weight of being the bearer of a truth he hadn't asked to know. And for a brief moment, she wondered, was he doing this for Bruno, or was there something more? There was power in that look. There was control. "Monday," he said finally. "I'll return your purse Monday morning. We'll arrange a place and I'll deliver it. And Bruno, that's on you. But if you don't tell him by Monday, I will." Anna felt her legs weaken. "Carlos, please ... 2 days," he interrupted. "You have 2 days to do the right thing. After that, I don't promise anything." He passed her and went to the bathroom, closed the door. Anna stood in the hallway, her legs shaky, her heart racing. 2 days, 48 hours to tell Bruno a truth that would destroy him. On Sunday, Anna barely left bed. She told Bruno she had a virus. He made tea, brought toast, was worried. Each gesture of care was a knife in her chest. Monday morning, Bruno left early. He kissed her forehead before leaving. "Take care, okay? Call me if you need anything, okay?" At 10, Anna met Carlos at the office reception. He handed over the purse. "Everything's there. I didn't touch anything. Thank you." "Are you going to tell him?" he asked, his voice low. Anna looked at the purse in her hands. "I will tonight." "You sure?" "I am." Carlos studied her for a few more seconds. "He's going to suffer. But he needs to know." "I know." That evening, when Anna got home, Bruno was making dinner. She put the purse on the floor, took off her shoes. "Bruno," she said, her voice firmer than expected. "We need to talk." Bruno turned off the stove and turned around, his smile beginning to waver. "Everything okay?" Anna went into the living room and sat on the couch. "Sit here." Bruno came, sat, his body turned toward her, concern on his face. "You're scaring me." "What happened?" Anna looked at her own hands. There was no script for this. There was no gentle way. "There's something I need to tell you, and there's no easy way to say this." Bruno's face changed. Concern gave way to fear. "Okay, you can tell me." Anna closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, she forced herself to look at him. "I'm pregnant." The silence was absolute. Bruno blinked once, twice. "You ... What?" "I'm pregnant." He kept looking as if she was speaking another language. Then something moved in his face, confusion giving way to a fragile hope, almost painful. "But how?" "The doctors said, ICOULDN, single quotes, T ... double quotes. I know what the doctors said." Bruno stood up, ran his hand through his hair, took 2 steps, then came back. "No, wait, maybe they were wrong. Maybe ... double quotes." Bruno Anna stood up too. "The doctors weren't wrong. The child isn't yours." The words shattered like glass. Bruno stepped back as if he'd been punched. "It's not." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying the child isn't yours." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Bruno shook his head, trying to process. "How long have you been cheating on me?" "It was once." I was confused. "Don't put this on me," he shouted, his face red. "Don't put this shit on me like it's my fault. I know it's my fault." "Who is it?" "Who's the father?" "Someone from work. You don't know him. He doesn't even know I'm pregnant." Bruno rubbed his face hard. When he took his hands away, his eyes were red. "I trusted you. I loved you. I still love you. And you ... He couldn't finish. He turned his back, his shoulders shaking. Then he turned back, his face wet. "Carlos knew, didn't he?" Anna froze. "What?" "Carlos, he knew, didn't he? That's why he was asking those questions." The answer was on her face. "My own brother knew before me. He only found out because I forgot my purse in his car. He found the test. He gave me until today to tell you." Bruno gave a humorless laugh. "How generous." Bruno ... "Get out. I don't want you here. We can talk." "There's nothing to talk about. Please, just go." Anna grabbed her things, looked back. Bruno had his back turned, hunched over, broken. "I'm so sorry." He didn't respond. Anna called her mother crying, went to sleep in her childhood bedroom. Her mother, without judgment, asked, "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." "Do you want to have this baby?" It was the only question that mattered. Bruno spent the week in a fog, barely ate, barely slept. On Thursday, Carlos showed up. "I did the right thing," Carlos said. "You didn't do anything. You destroyed my life. It wasn't me. It was her. But you were the one who decided how and when I would find out." Bruno shouted. "You orchestrated everything, gave deadlines, tested her like you were some kind of judge. I gave her a chance, and you think that makes you better? You decided when my heart would be shattered." Carlos couldn't respond. "You know what's worse?" Bruno continued, his voice trembling. "It's not just that she cheated on me. It's that my own brother treated me like a child. You decided alone what was best for me. You wanted to feel powerful, to control, and in the process, you lost as much as I did. You lost my trust, my respect. A brother." The words hit Carlos like blows. They were true. There was ego, power, the seduction of being a moral arbiter. "I'm sorry," Carlos said, genuine remorse in his voice. "Me too." Bruno opened the door. "You can go." Carlos left. In the car, he finally understood. Truth may be necessary, but the way you reveal it says as much about you as it does about the truth. He had used it as a weapon, as control. He was paying the price now, not just for losing Bruno's trust, but for losing his own moral integrity. 2 weeks later, Anna continued therapy, working, existing. She scheduled an obstetrician, did tests. On the ultrasound, she saw the pulsing dot. 8 weeks, everything's going well. She looked at that dot and felt connection, responsibility. A month later, she saw Bruno across the street. He was wearing the jacket she'd given him. She thought about crossing, but she stayed where she was. Bruno crossed and disappeared into the crowd. Anna felt deep pain, but also relief, closure, acceptance. Life went on, and Anna was learning to go on with it, carrying scars, choosing to continue. Carlos thought about Bruno. A month and a half without talking. He typed a message. "I'm sorry for everything." He stared at it, then deleted it without sending. Some burned bridges can't be rebuilt. Some truths about our ego only reveal themselves after we cause the damage. The scars would never disappear. They would become the landscape of their new lives. Carlos's revenge didn't bring peace. It brought loneliness and loss, because the way he revealed the truth made him part of the tragedy. He discovered too late that being the bearer of truth didn't absolve him. Using it as control leaves everyone wounded, including the wielder. Carlos convinced himself he was protecting Bruno, but he became the architect of greater pain, not just of betrayal, but of discovering that even those you trust can manipulate. Bruno carried not just the pain of betrayal, but the complexity of knowing the truth came through manipulation. His brother orchestrated his pain, and Anna discovered that true peace was in building a future with the marks the truth left. Redemption isn't a moment, it's a process, long, painful, made of daily acts of honesty. It's waking up and choosing to be better, knowing you'll never erase what was done. Carlos's truth wasn't pure justice. It was revenge, control, power. It was arrogance of placing himself as judge without recognizing he was transgressing. Truth rarely brings relief. It brings a new phase of challenges, of learning to live with scars that become part of who you become. And it's this complexity that forces us to ask, was it justice or revenge? Did Anna deserve a second chance? Did Bruno have the right to know? But in that way, when someone discovers a secret like this, what's the morally correct response? Is there one? These are questions without easy answers. Dilemmas that define us as humans, imperfect, navigating between right and wrong without a clear map. The question isn't whether truth should be revealed, it's how, by whom, with what motivation. The difference between justice and revenge lies not in what we do, but in why we do it. Carlos thought he was protecting Bruno, but he was also feeding ego, exercising power, and this mixture makes his story complex, impossible to judge simply. In the end, they'll all have to find a way to live with what happened, not overcoming some things I just survived, but moving forward, carrying scars, learning, becoming different, hopefully better, and maybe that's what matters. Not that we avoid mistakes, but that we have the courage to look at ourselves with brutal honesty and ask, what can I learn? How can I be better? These are the questions Anna, Carlos and Bruno will have to ask themselves, and the answers will define who they'll become. We're all made of the scars of our truths, and how we choose to carry them. What's your opinion on the thin line between justice and revenge? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're looking for more stories that explore real-life dilemmas, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next videos.